Hello, all. It is me. Duh. So I'm sure it's no surprise to you, especially based off of videos about comic book movies and reboots and things being remade and no original stories. It gets very annoying and it gets old. I mean, I even made a video about it in regards to video games with, things being remade left and right. Disney, we're looking at you. And sometimes it's always the things that don't need to be remade. We've seen these stories, we know about these stories, we talk about these stories, and they're being remade anyway, while there's tons upon tons of things that are being just glossed over all of the time, when those are the stories that should be remade. In that video, I discussed and listed out a bunch of different games that I think could make great games if they were just redone from scratch. But today we're not talking about games. And I could make a whole video about movies or franchises or even shows that I think could be remade. But 3 days ago, totally out of the blue, even for someone like me who follows movies, whether it's comic book movies, independent movies, I'm following it all of the time, and somehow one just kind of flew past my radar, and I had no idea was even being made. I heard rumors, but I never really thought they were true. But let me give you some background. When I was growing up, I was introduced to things from all different kinds of previous generations, past eras. I grew up with a dad who has always been a senior citizen, so I've grown up with things that maybe some of your grandparents grew up watching. I was introduced to things that all of my older siblings grew up with, as they rather rewatched shows or they would play games and things that they grew up with. And something that our mom actually showed my twin brother and I at a relatively young age for when we should have watched it, but it's okay because we loved it and I still love it to this day, is the movie that came out in, I believe, 1994. This isn't scripted, so I'll correct myself, but starred Brandon Bruce Lee, called The Crow. It was based off of a story that a Marine that goes by a name that I also don't know. I vaguely know the backstory. I know that it's a story written by a Marine who lost his fiance in an accident, and he wanted to write a story about his feeling of loss, and he created The Crow. And The Crow is a story about Eric Draven, who wants to celebrate his love with his new fiance, and coincidentally that day get bombarded with some street thugs. He's killed. His wife is also killed in a very much more brutal way. And he is resurrected as a spirit of vengeance of sort, so that he can get revenge for his wife and what had happened to him, so that he may rest peacefully alongside his wife. Anyways, the original movie, while it was kind of a small budget movie, especially for its time, wasn't like anything crazy or groundbreaking, at least not in today's standards. But back then, it was a huge hit. It even spawned countless sequels, even a couple, I think a whole TV series as well. And while it's not something that I read the comic books myself and it was something that I was super glued to throughout my life, it's just a title, and more specifically a movie, that I've kept near and dear to my heart for a long time. So last year, or maybe 2 years ago, when I heard a rumor that there was a reboot in the makes, I kind of just brushed it off, because I just thought, you know what, we hear that a lot. There's things that people always want to make. Directors always have ideas of movies they want to create and stories that they want to tell, but a lot of the time they're just rumors. They never really go past the idea concept. I'm sure you can expect how surprised I was when 3 days ago, as of recording this video, The Crow 2024 had a trailer, and all of the rumors were true.
And the soul cannot rest.
It was going to be a modern retelling of the original Eric Draven story, starring Bill Skarsgård. And especially when I originally heard that Bill Skarsgård was playing, first thought, oh, the Skarsgård brother that played Pennywise is going to be the really dark and grim Crow character that Brandon Bruce Lee played? Extensive creative liberties would have to be taken for that to work. And crazy enough, not only is that also true, but so far, just from the one trailer, I truly believe it works. Okay, I just finished filming and I totally forgot to cover something that I meant to talk about. Sorry, I'm getting all. I'll set you down right here, right there. Okay. So I forgot to mention the worst thing, and it's the only bad thing, really, and it's an issue that a lot of trailers have these days. And it's just that I think they show too much. I mean, I like that we get enough substance in the trailer so that we have a good idea of what the movie looks like and how it feels compared to the previous movies. But at the same time, they show a lot. I think a lot of the action sequences, and if you've seen the trailer, because I'm probably going to try not to show too much of the gore that they actually do show in the trailer, but I would have liked to see a lot of that in the movies when I go to see it. So I'm hoping that that means that there's even more action and things that will surprise us as the audience. Yeah, I do think they showed a little too much in the trailer. So I'm hoping for more. I don't mean to get my hopes up, but I am hoping for a little bit more. But other than that, I think it looks great. I'm super excited for it. And again, just as I was wrapping up filming, I started pulling up articles and stuff, and apparently a lot of people are already bashing on the movie. It's like, just wait. Wait for the movie to come out. We'll get back to me like 5-10 minutes ago. And yeah. I know it kind of just sounds like I'm rambling. Again, it's not scripted. I just sat down and I decided I wanted to make this video. But typically this is something, especially if you showed me a trailer like this maybe 5 years ago, I would have been one of those people like, yeah, but it's too different, blah, 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 blah. And whilst that might be true for a lot of stories I've seen retold, especially comic book stories, I think it works great for The Crow. Because The Crow was originally written as like a metaphor or kind of like a retelling of someone's real life feelings interpreted onto a page. So reinterpreting the story for the modern age and expressing it in this more dramatic fashion, I feel works in its favor. I mean, things from, ditching the long gothic 90s hair to a more shortcut mullet type thing, face tattoos, and maybe him not being a musician this time like he was in the comic, and someone who's apparently had issues with the law, and his girlfriend turned fiance being the same way. It all just works. Also, even the makeup, like instead of him having a white face paint with the lines drawn down his face, which worked back in the day, I think the idea of him just smearing black over his eyes and it coming down towards the sides, making it look more like tears, kind of accentuates the details of the character a little better. I'm sure that's what they were going for with the original lines, but this version just looks more emotional almost. It's kind of like wearing your heart on your sleeve, but in a very graphic way, I guess. I also like a bunch of the other changes. Like it seems like they're taking a more supernatural approach with this story. In the original book, from what I know, and in the original movie, the most supernatural thing about the entirety of the story was the Crow, or Eric Draven's character. Unless it's more of a psychedelic thing that just isn't translating through the trailer very well, it seems like even the bad guys themselves have kind of like a supernatural aspect that is kind of like flushing out the world a bit more, almost like the director himself's kind of taking more creative liberties to establish a whole universe that the Crow lives inside, instead of it just centering around one guy and what's going on with him, which obviously it still is. It's still heavily around the perspective of Eric Draven, but there's a world he lives in to kind of bring the whole story together, if that makes any sense. This is all speculation, of course. I'm getting all of this just from a 3-minute trailer, but I'm excited. Like I said, the original movie holds a place deep in my heart, and I'm excited to see with this trailer that not only are we getting a reboot that I've always exclaimed that we needed, more so in the sense that a story that just needed to be retold instead of like the countless reboots of franchises we already know about, but it also kind of redeems the name a bit because, like I mentioned before, The Crow actually had a ton of sequels and they tried to like milk the flair that the original movie had by creating movie after movie in a series and so on and so forth. But they were just cheap. They were trying too hard to, ride the wave that Brandon Bruce Lee's version did so well. It doesn't really work all that well. I don't know if any of you have seen any of the movies I'm referencing, but they're clearly not as strong as the original one. It also felt very distasteful at the same time that they made all of those movies following the original Crow movie, especially when maybe this is just me and I didn't grow up with all of these movies because I didn't really know about the following movies and series until much later on. And there again, I wasn't even born for the original movie. But when I was introduced to the original movie, another thing that I found out when I got a little older was this movie was also the movie that sadly was the reason Brandon Bruce Lee passed on. Reports say it had something to do with a misfire from a prop gun. I don't know, but a part of me just thinks it feels very icky that different people tried as hard as they did to try to greenlit so many movies and series off of this franchise when honestly they should have just tried to honor him and maybe leave the franchise alone for a bit. I don't know. I know that's a big thing to say because the film industry was a very different thing back then compared to what it is now. The point I'm just trying to make is that what I've been trying to say whenever I talk about reboots and what I was trying to say in the video I made about video game remakes is that if you're going to remake an established IP, one, you don't have to pick the thing that previously made a lot of money. I know that's the whole point. This movie, I'm really crossing my fingers on, should show the movie industry that if you're passionate enough about a particular franchise or story, and you do have the right strengths and talents to put your own creative liberties into it, it's not a bad thing to retell a story that maybe people don't know about, or maybe just picking something a little older, or maybe just picking something that was glossed over a little bit back in its time. Like, I love Batman, but there's too many Batman movies. I love Spider-Man. There's too many Spider-Man movies, and the list goes on. So The Crow, while I do think there are too many Crow movies, one, they were all shit. Sorry, it's true. There's only really been one good Crow movie so far. And two, they were all old enough and not as well known enough to where this reboot with the budget and the flair that it has justifies retelling the story properly. And it's not like the director is, telling a completely new story and he's not doing what all the other sequels did where they just write a new character and write a ridiculously similar scenario to the original character. He is as far as we know, he's doing the original version of The Crow in a new way, I guess. It's still Eric Draven. It's still his fiance, Shelley. But I did get confused a little bit because in this trailer, it sounded like he called her Julie. Julie! But whatever, it's still him as far as we know. I am curious if they're going to call the bad guys the same thing that they were called in the original movie and in the original comic, like Top Dollar, and that's the only one I can remember. But I was thinking maybe I'll read the original story. I know there was like a smaller version of the story before it got like officially published and turned into like a full series. But I was thinking about reading them. And then when the new movie comes out with Bill Skarsgård, I'll obviously watch that. And maybe we'll do like I did with the Venom video. We'll compare all of them side by side. And we'll do a Crow video. How's that sound? My very ambitious brain wants to do like a whole skit with the Crow and stuff, but I don't have that kind of budget or equipment. I guess we'll see. But yeah, let me know what you think about that video idea. Are you excited for the new Crow movie? Do you even know which movie I'm talking about before watching this? Regardless, let me know what you think. If you haven't already, I'm sure that's somewhere in the top you would have seen that I referenced and linked the video game remakes video. So feel free to go watch that, or the Venom video I referenced, or just go watch anything on my channel. I'm like a super duper little itty bitty tiny channel, so I think you should go watch it. Am I rambling? Maybe. Is this video going on for too long? Probably. Yeah, because I have a whole other video to edit. So leave a like, leave a comment, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, weekend, whenever the hell you're watching this. And yeah. Okay, bye.